that what we're doing, who we are supporting, is really what's going to happen to make the change. And I don't see the change to come in the immensity that people think the world's going to change. I think if this all takes place, that's probably going to be the biblical time of the war.
Welcome back to the Jupiter podcast. I'm your host, Tom Franklin, and today we have on a Mr. Micheal Anthony. I ran across Micheal on Facebook. I don't know him, and because we're all in this community, quote unquote, together. And I happened to see a post about him mentioning a thing called the Gray Pope, and I've heard that term before. So I was like, hey, let's see if he would come on and talk about it. And so I got him for you. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Our Jupiter podcast, Mr. Micheal Anthony.
Hey.
Hey, evening. Man. Good evening. How are you doing, man?
I'm okay.
I'm a little tired. I slept 4 hours, started work at 5, and put up 16 panels in the hot Yucatan sun today. So I am tired, but I will persevere.
I know how that can kick your double AS. I get that. Yeah, I get
absolutely. That. So for those out there who don't know you, as myself, as well as myself, please tell our listeners, viewers, watchers a little bit about yourself and where we can find you.
Well, I don't really put my information out there because I like to stay in somewhat of a low key profile because of certain scenarios that exist on social media platforms. And some of it's sensitive to other one's ears, of course, and so forth. So for that reason, I would just say to anybody, if you see me live somewhere, it's probably a good thing to click on it and check it out for a few minutes. I try to bring information forward the way you do. I have been doing this for years. I have an immense amount of time and video hours put into it, as well as with guests and being on other shows. But yeah, as far as who I am, it's not really who I am or what I do. It's the power of the message. I think that's the most important element where we are in this time and on any level of any structure of what we talk about.
Yeah, that's very interesting because I think that's exactly what we all want to do. I mean, there's a lot of people out there, they're kind of like NPCs, was that just robots out there consuming, not really doing anything with their existence. You can turn on lights. Oh my goodness. And my Mexican girlfriend turn the light on.
So that's why you do pre-recordings. You might have to edit that.
No, I ain't going to edit that. I'm keeping it real. The thing is, Mike, I'm really I'm behind the 8 ball because of certain things that persisted about 4 years ago, up until maybe a year and a half ago. I had to leave where I was living, which was Germany. So I took all my savings, left my job, took my wife and my kids, and I moved here to Mexico because I wasn't going to allow them to do what they wanted to do with me. So I bought 10 acres off grid, put solar panels out there. I got a well out there. And right now I'm working my tail off just to try to finish it up so that my now ex-wife, because it kind of broke us up, can live comfortably and then watch my kid is homeschool her while I make some money and try to support them. So that's what I'm doing. But at the same time, I've always been interested in these topics. And like I said, I seen you on Facebook. It was Easter. It was Easter. And you said something. I don't know exactly the wording you used. It was like, Happy Easter, the Gray Pope. And I was like, I've heard that before. So maybe you can get into what is the Gray Pope?
Well, there's more than one. There's three that I think a lot of people are aware of: White Pope, Gray Pope, Black Pope. One represents religion, one represents the Illuminati, and one represents basically corporate enterprising and control. So it gets into big names. Who are these people? And it's probably not a good thing for us to mention those particular names, but we do know who wears the robe of the white cloth. We see him do things. We see him kneel and kiss feet of other representatives of certain other entities of powers. So we know that when we see things like this, that there's something drastically, unmeasurably wrong in the society of what we've been taught and what we think we see. And if you go back in history, and everybody should, to think about what everything means. As an example, NASA, we look at it as a component that helps us, that is doing things for us, that's making endeavors into the future for the betterment of mankind. But the true definition behind that is to deceive. And of course, we see, so many examples of how that exists, especially when NASA owns the rights to the Great Pyramid on the inside. And the fact that oh, yes. And yeah, there's much more to the story there. Also, in how many places that they exist in, including in places of war right now that are taking place. And again, I'm going to try to watch my verbiage carefully. But yeah, they're located all over the place. And so when you look at these narratives, you try to double down, at least for me, to do research. If you could see behind me how much I have on the floor right now, because I'm getting ready to construct some books together.
There you go.
It's everywhere. It's a mess, but I understand the mess, but I don't even understand the mess, but it's all there. And it's compiled from like 50 years of memory, thoughts, writings, information and research. But what we have here is a family. And when you get into families, you have names like Orsini. And people will say, well, who's Orsini? Well, Orsini is a very powerful name, and people have the ability to change their names. Not everything is as what it looks like to be. So you have scenarios like that. And if you want to go even further down into that rabbit hole, if you take a name like the Rothschild, it's Roshan, Sean. It comes from ancient times, and that's that bloodline. So we know it as Rothschild, but it's Roshan. So you have to understand why this is, and why Jordan Maxwell was screaming at the top of his lungs, signs and symbols are everywhere, because they truly are. And how do you get awake? It's probably the same way you had an instinct to do what you did, to move where you moved, to do now what you're doing.
Yes, sir.
Probably a big, huge component to why you did it. And like you, I'm a lot like you, and many other people are as well. So that's to give you a little gist of it. It's the power of controls. Like if you really utilize the CI and the A, it's Catholics in charge, Catholics in action. CIA, Catholic in action. Yes. So everything has a different agenda.
Right, because if you look at any mafia ties to help people, give them a little bit of a foothold in what we're talking about. If you look at any mafia ties, whether it be in New York, Chicago, whether it be in LA, or mafia within Europe, all of them for some reason have the basis within the Catholic Church. So why is that? And I think that's what you're trying to basically say, is that they are controlling a lot more than we think they're controlling. They also own a hell of a lot of real estate. That's for sure.
They are the largest real estate conglomerate on the globe, and they're under a 501c, non-taxable. So, and not only that, they guarantee your way into heaven for so much money every week. I mean, why not look into it further? And when it comes to, like, mafia, then it comes into, there are different formats and divisions of also Masons, and there is a separate division for what that and what the Little Italy actually stands for. So why were
Okay.
they here running our country? Why were they here running New York and New Jersey? Why were they here bootlegging? And why are they the biggest construction people? I mean, because it's politics. It's who knows who and who knows how to control what for something to work. So when
Mm.
you work with politics, or if you work with governments, and you know how to create bids and you know how to create friendships and handshakes, that gets you jobs. Huge, huge, huge jobs. And casinos. So it just grows. It grows. And so this is something that is a network of how a machine and think tanks work and how they place themselves. And, it's more huge than what a lot of people would ever realize. It really
Wow.
is, but on many levels of many different items and terms.
There was also a shakeup in the 1960s, if I'm not mistaken, with Rudy Giuliani, where they took all the families and just kind of destroyed them, where they made up a new law. Can you explain to me, was that a power move? Was that a power grab? What happened there exactly?
Well, that's one of the reasons he's been facing a lot of the consequences over the last few years that he has, because he uses his voice, his strength and power, his reputation as to who he was and what he was doing. And I think he had good skills to bring what he brought forward to do what he did. And I think he went after a networking system. And I think I'm best just to say that, because look what they did to him. Look at anybody that did anything that spoke up. Alex Jones, it doesn't matter. I mean, really, the further you, Rush Limbaugh, it doesn't matter. These are all people that have a voice. When you build a platform of that type of substance and voice, then they seem, or you seem to have that problem. Look at the war room. I mean, it doesn't matter who it is. But the sad part about it is, when I do look at the overall picture, is there's another side to what happens. You do have true people who are fighting to get information on, and then you have people that spend a moment of time in a place who now have become part of a networking system of information, and their information hasn't even been correct in manners, just to say. But we do see bank accounts grow from what they do. It's like a guy who wants to make a living, and I say, go make your living. I understand it. But when you make a living off a war
Mm.
of people, and that's the only objective you really maintain and have, then you don't belong with us. You don't belong in
True.
this.
True.
Because
Yep.
that's what I see. I see people writing books. I see people doing this, and then and there's a whole list of it. But that would give a lot of people's names out to who I'm referring to. But if you had this much information from the inside, every one of them made money off that inside information from the inside. They utilized it as a power format for
Mm.
themselves, and they did it successfully, and they got huge followings. And then, of course, when you have huge followings, you get like these little endorsements, and you get lectures, you get invited, you get plane tickets, you get paid. I'm sorry, I work from a different side of the platform. Mine is to
Right.
do whatever I can and protect the children, and all the
Stop.
information will always be free.
That dude, that protect the children thing is. I have a daughter, and the things that I see now, there's a reason why I homeschool. Let's put it that way. There's a
Oh, I
reason,
know.
because we know what the schooling system was initially for, to get you ready for your life of servitude. And so I'm teaching her at her rate in the way she understands things. To get off the subject just a little bit, I would be remiss not to mention that you have a flying V guitar hanging up the wall behind you. I'm going to ask you, is that a Dean or a
No,
Washburn?
it's a hybrid.
Okay, you made
I
it yourself.
I took all these pieces and put them together with a friend of mine. I do wood things, but the things that I do in wood are chainsaw carvings. So I thought I had enough smarts to try to do this. And one night, I mean, I owned a bar. A friend of mine came in who I knew that did a lot of music, and I was with a band called Misguided Children at the time. and we were hanging out. Well, we were trying to be a band called. It was where the problem was everybody. I collected guitars because of this. The problem was everybody in the band was on a low side of having a good job, always being shy of money. So I could just pull a guitar, say, "We'll practice at the bar tonight." I'll just pull something off the wall. So this was something that got left there, something that got broke there, and something that turned into a masterpiece.
Wow, how long have you been playing?
I don't know, but I haven't been playing recently in the last 4 to 5 years, to be honest with you. I mean, I've done probably 1,000 hours in shows in the last 4 hours. 4 hours, 4 years, as well as, I do a lot of property development for myself. I have a lot of things because I think brick and mortar is the way to go. I don't trust gold. I don't trust oil. I don't trust these they're under control of a stock market, which means they're under control of my pocket. And
right.
And if I was to take even and do anything lucrative to sell things, even though right now real estate's a hot commodity, what do I do if tomorrow the bank shut down? What if this all does take place and it all happens just like that? And they say everything went missing. The records are gone. We don't know what you had. And it turns into a long process of never knowing if you're ever going to get your money back again, like once happened in the Great Depression. So, my thought is, and where I'm at is just to stay where I am, continue doing what I'm doing. But yeah, so a lot of hours in shows, a lot of, meeting with people, talking to them, etc., getting stories from people, the same as you're starting out to do, which is great because you will find people that have greatness in their stories. And I think you'll find out who's real and who's not when you do them. Just conduct your interviews the best you can, but always give them the lead of the platform.
Yes,
and that's the best you can do. And right next to that one is somewhere. Where the hell am I? Yeah, I got a bass guitar hanging to it, but I don't have everything on. I let Jimmy Church do that.
Okay.
I told him in a message. He posted something with some pictures. I told him in a message. I mean, he's a fantastic guy. Let's face it. He came into an era of radio and different things at a perfect time for himself, and he's established himself well. His career's been fascinating, but he has up like I think 20 guitars now. And I said to him, I said, I'm not going to pull anything I got out of a case because all I have to do is clean it once a week, and that in itself is a chore.
Yeah, I knew a guy who had like 200 guitars, and I was just like, well, "What are you doing?" I had like maybe 4. I had 2 6 strings. One was a baritone. I had a 7 and I had an 8 because then it covers everything. And what I think is I'm a metal artist, also a singer. I've been doing it years, hundreds of shows. I've done that for many years. Even if I look back at my music when I was in my mid 20s, it's all like against the government and stand up for yourself. So it's always been in me to be this way. What was the catalyst for you that got you to do what you do, dude?
On which level? I mean,
was there like a watershed moment in which you were like, man, there's something up, or like, hey, that's not right, and therefore I'm going to look into it, or you got beat in the head so many times that you just kind of like woke yourself up? What was it exactly? Is there a specific moment?
Not really. I mean, if you want to know, it goes back 50 years or more. I got fascinated by watching a couple TV shows on TV, asking myself over and over, could these things be real? And so Leonard Nimoy was one of the ones, I think it was called In Search Of, that did the Bigfoot and did cryptids and things like that. And I think that took me on past, that opened up cans of worms everywhere. Government, always something goes back to the government. And that's why I formatted below level 7. The theory on what we're going to be going through on April 8th and the possibilities of the devil's horn, coming through at the same particular time. And on the other narrative, some say it's going to be, Planet X. So again, theories on Planet X. I put all this out there 3-4 years ago of these levels of what we were going to see into the future, and they all landed. I mean, if I was in Las Vegas and I could have put chips on what I did, I'd have hit big. I'd have really hit big. And I'm not saying that that's pat yourself on the back. That's because I just been doing it for like 50 years and trying to put it together. Well, a lot of people around me didn't even have a clue what I was thinking. But my mindset went into these things, and then I had experiences that followed suit also.
So it
So
was like
when
a,
you
I'm
no,
sorry, I
please.
was trying to find the natural rhythm. So you're saying you was like it was like a pattern recognition. So you were able to see what was happening and to project into the future. And you're saying not everyone bats 1,000, but you're batting at least 700. I guess you would say. So through pattern recognition, you can say, okay, starting at this date, certain things are going to happen. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Um, I didn't have dates. I had hunches. I gut
Okay.
instinct. And people would say to me, they really would. They would like, "What are you talking about? This is nuts. This is erratic." And I got called out on it by a lot of people. One of them being Randy Rhodes. And I said, "Listen, my brother from a different
Randy
mother."
Rhodes?
No, not that Randy Rhodes, but
Oh, I
he
was
is a
saying.
Randy Rhodes. Yeah, no, Randy Rhodes has been gone for a long time. No, I never had the privilege of talking with that young man, but I'm sure we were at the same age at some point in life, as far as that. But no, I was on shows, doing different shows with people, but they always said to me, "Holy shit, your accuracy!" And I'm not trying to be accurate. I'm trying to decipher what I see are the messages, but I see other people doing it too. I do. And I don't know if they're copycatting on people. I know I'm not. The proof is on my floor behind me. I joke not with you. That's my own writing. That's my own thoughts. That's my own research and analogies broke down to be placed in the books to come. And that's what I was working on today. I even put a video up on Facebook about it. It was like, okay, I know my first topic and how, and I'm kind of going to move forward with it now. And a lot of people are, hey, that's really cool, But I always thought this: am I not writing a book every day I come on and talk about this? Am I not already giving you my inside theories, thoughts, and my closest evaluations to everything? But there's other things that's happened in my life too that are unexplainable. And I'll give you a really quick, simple example. I could be working somewhere and I don't care where this was or even for myself. And I've never touched this issue. And I'd pick up the phone, say to my oldest brother, "Hey, Joe, blah, 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 blah. I don't have time, man." I say, "Okay, all right. You can't help me out." No. All right. So then it would be like, who else can I call? Who can I find? Anyway, I would wake up in the morning and I would know what to do. I don't know how, but I would go to work. I would face the music because in some cases the fingers were being pointed to me. This is what you're hired for. And I would say, no, my job is specifically to do this. And you would have to outsource things that I didn't know of. But I always went to bat. And somehow I would come back upstairs and say, "It's finished. Bye." And I'm going back to my job. And
Wow.
so I always had those kind of things, building small motors. I mean, whatever I place. Look, I can't draw for the life of me, but if you give me a chainsaw, I can make you something like this.
All right. It's kind of like me, a bit of an artist, does a little bit of everything. All right now.
So
Sick, dude.
I get a chainsaw and I make things. So how is that? How is it possible that someone can wake up and already know every cut that I need to make when I do it?
Well, then some people refer to it as like a download. I mean, the same thing was happening with Tesla,
Yeah.
like the Tesla. He was
Right.
like, how did he get the idea for an AC motor? Just like some kind of download, because
Plasma beams. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
because he had it going on everywhere. He really did, and they're using it now.
yes,
Our own government that refused the technology, Russia was buying it, and now we desire it. And holographics, whatever, it's that he was the man.
he was the man. I read a couple books by him, and it was. I have that too sometimes. Like I also do stand up. I'm like you, kind of a jack of all trades. I do a little bit of everything. And
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
No, I get it. I get it.
Yeah,
I've been the same way. You don't know until you do it or try to do it.
and when you do it, you it's like it's slow at the beginning because it interests you, and then you catch something and you're able to not because I don't know if you ever can ever master stand up or be a master of chainsaw carving or something like that, but you get it, and then you have other people who come up to you and say, "Hey man, that's pretty good," and you're like, "Really? I'm not even really trying yet." It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not to sound egoistic or anything. It's just like, the things that are hard to me are like math. I never understood it. But when it come to things like language, I'm working on my third language, and I never knew that I could do that. You know what I mean? Because I lived in Germany for 20 years, so I also speak German. So when you said Rothschild, it's actually Rothschild, which is red shield. You know what I mean? So, and then you said there was also a base in that. So I was just like, why would they change it to a German name? And that goes back to the Bulgarian Illuminati. So I'm sure there's some type of connection there as well.
I wouldn't doubt it. And I think they look for the elements like that. I mean, even the Bush family that's not their real name.
Okay.
It's not their real name. So you have scenarios like that. And if you go into history, you find things like that out, and you'll find out about Prescott Bush
That guy.
utilizing his strengths and abilities to actually help Hitler. And when you look at the whole scenario of where we are and the New World Order, Hitler wrote the book in 1928, and it's published. It's out there in the public domain.
The book. Okay.
The book of 1928, New World Order. So the OWO was behind this, but how far behind it? Because even when we look at the facts of what we know, just what's going to happen on April 8th is so huge. It's going to come past biblical names of content that were reflected into ancient times and places. And they're named all through the United States. And that sun's going to cross completely across it. And they're calling for blood donations. They're calling for National Guard. They're giving all these warnings out. They're putting up do not enter signs everywhere. Expect delays. April 8th. I mean, really, this stuff is being publicized by our own county administrators throughout the United States because they think an injunction of cars is just going to fluctuate like freight trains flying down the highway to visualize this. And, of course, wear your sunglasses because it's going to be a disaster. Show me one piece of factual information that reflects that anybody that witnessed this in the past had something go wrong with their eyes.
You mean looking at a okay?
Well, so I think the ancients would have left us at. They would have probably carved out a pair of something. Go get yourself some dark sunglasses right up on top of the, one of their monuments somewhere, because they left us a lot of information, of subject matter.
So without like burning up my account on YouTube here, what's going to happen on the 8th?
I don't know. I mean, it's to me, hypothetically speaking.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Well, I did a show with a good friend of mine, and I really do look at him that way. And we did a commentary together on iHeart, and I don't know, I think it hit coast to coast. And it was the other night, and it was about what's called the Adam and Eve story. It's a book by Chan Thomas, who I think is two people that I put together. And it became an item of interest through the government. And they removed the book. And they took the book. And they took the editors and the printers, and they redacted all this stuff in the book. And then they re-released it. But before that happened, a lot of information was captured within it, understood, and then more remarkable people put things together, like the ghost scientist, a friend of mine who Art Bell named him that. And a very, very intelligent young man. I'm going to call him a young man, but he really is. And we did a breakdown of analogies of things we would see. And one of the things that came up immediately when we did the show was the fact Baltimore. And then you have the scenario of three other entities. I got hit the other day for putting up a picture of that. And they put me, under community standards. But so you had these three other bridges. One got burnt from underneath, another ship hit another bridge, but it didn't damage it enough for shutdown. And then you had two ports. One was in India, one was in Turkey, where they freight lined right into the unloading areas and smashed the cranes over. So I expect that we're going to see, with everything we're seeing, turmoil, the same as when we were tested under the Big P, when that all took place, when everybody should be fearing for their life, et cetera, and so forth. And I think we're going to be looking at that. But I also think because of what just happened, it's going to be sugars. It's going to be some important hazardous materials that get turned into good materials. Then you have Biden recently that just said, we're not going to fill the oil reserves. So we're going to get spanked in a whole bunch of ways. They're starting to enclose on us now. They're going to intrude in our lives in a different way. But it's also going to get back down to toilet papers, foods, and all these other scenarios. And while they're giving $20 an hour to workers, they're going to be charging $18 for a Happy Meal now. And who in the right mind is going to take their children to these places? And
Right.
now we have bird flu. Bird flu's going nuts. The eggs, so they're estimating that 100 million chickens or something, and I could be wrong on that number, will have to be brought down due to this. The pork industry's moved to China. So Smithfield's gone, which was one of the biggest companies, but China bought it on. China becomes the biggest farmland owner with Bill Gates, et cetera, and a couple other very rich people and powerful people. So you have those scenarios. And then, of course, you have the farmers that are being bought out, squashed, and they're fighting for their lives all over the world, to be able to exist. Our meats are going to deplenish in ways to you're going to go into stores, and the only thing you will be able to buy are manufactured meats.
Wow.
So I think with what we're seeing, they may be looking for a third resolution to their plan. One of them being that there is a possibility, and we know that this exists, there's paperwork to it, where they may actually fire off 3 rockets up towards the event. So that narrative's out there. Then you have CERN, which I brought up about 6 weeks ago. I said the next thing will be CERN, and then after that it'll be a no-fly zone. They're going to have to create a no-fly zone for that event, not so we can see it more clearly, but in case they cause some type of irreversible problem of a test, whatever these purposes of these 3 rockets are, if they go through with it. So we're going to be watching something that I don't think is going to be harmful to the eyes, because I think our elders would have been informed us of, hey, don't ever look up at that thing. You're going to have serious problems. Our own grandparents lived through it, and great-grandparents. We would have had these messages passed on to us about what they learned from these events. My grandparents never said a word to me.
Live through what, Michael?
Oh, the eclipse.
Yeah, we just lived through one. We just had one.
But this is going to be different.
Okay, and what?
Well, fake news. This is going to be different.
Okay, yes. Oh, we know that we are not scientists by any stretch of the imagination,
right.
But so you're thinking Nibiru?
Well, I mean, that's a hypothetical thought. I'm not really thinking
absolutely.
it, but I know it's out there. I don't know really how close it is, and I think we have enough amateurs looking up at the skies, and that's why I have a show called What's in the Skies. But it has a secondary purpose of interest for myself as well. That's a whole different story. But, I rely on the amateurs looking up into the skies and telling us things. But we do know that there are other planets, some you can't see to the naked eye, that are there, brown stars and more. John Lear said years ago, we have at least 40 planets up there. I've seen pictures of many of these things. They just don't talk about it. So we had technology doing things a long time ago. You're looking at me a little strange. John Lear.
No, I'm processing everything you're saying. You're dropping, to use a term, nuclear weapons without saying the actual nuclear weapon. Yeah. I'm reading between the lines where we have to talk on this format in this way. And I'm not looking at you strange. I'm looking at you in shock and awe.
Well, I mean, I don't want to go too far off on something to where this is never usable for you. I think where we are and what I've talked about, how I've done it, I escaped all the dramatics that they look for, but you can never be sure because they change the rules of the game every day.
Right.
And I can even go bigger on you. I can really go bigger on you.
I'm sure you can.
Joking. And ways so big, your mind would just be twisted. Mind bender wouldn't even be a category for it. I have a couple guests coming on now that have been presumed no longer with us for a long time. One of them of a very, very important name to a very, very important presidential tie, who now has just released a book, and he's coming on with me, and he's going to be telling a story from a whole different side. I've been gracious enough to receive really well-informed information, as well as proof of a DNA that says he is who he is. And right now I'm waiting on a secondary to get that same type of information, because the enormity of everything is when we get used to something because we don't see the change, then we're used to the fact that somebody's been stepped into somebody else's shoes. And these are the types of things that have always happened. And I'll reflect the Princess Diana. Very possible that the one that we recognize and think that was in that car was never even her. The real one was removed many years prior. And what we all witnessed was a step in. And if you look at the possibility of who the first son is, it's a Rothschild. And who the second son is, Harry, is actually the driver's child.
Oh, yeah, because all the royal families actually have German bloodlines. All of them. That's known. That is known as well.
No wonder why the Germans are always the first forerunners, and the Caesarian mafias and all. And
Caesarian. Oh, yeah. All right.
But there are ties within it. I mean, look, we didn't win the war. In my mind, everything was staged. And when old men start wars, young men fight them, they get their depopulation quotas. But while they're doing that, they're also getting more out of it. They're getting wealthier. And their friends are getting wealthier because everybody's sitting in the right place. The same as the Frankenstein effect. Everybody was in the right place for that to happen. And they were. And everybody got rich off of it. Many people got rich off it. And when you look at our own people in Washington, this has been said over and over and over and over again, and it's factual. They get richer elsewhere than they do being paid for the job that we voted them in for. So, these are just items that exist, the facts and truths. It's up to people to say, I see it all. I want to know more about it all. But in the meantime, take charge of their life to try to help us somehow. Because honestly, this is so big and so catastrophic. It's almost like there's going to be no way to get out of the well. And that's the truth. And it's not going to be by one man getting voted in to do it. He will never in his life, and I love him, he will never, if in fact it's him, he will never in his life be able to fix this. Yes, there are things he could come in and immediately do. Yes, things can be handled, but how do you get rid of the infiltration of the corruption everywhere when you don't even know who they all are? And that's the smartest technique they use. That's how they got to this place in power, is how I look at it. It's because presidents on the right and presidents on the left were all on the same side with them. It was just dictation. It was just giving false pretenses to the people, getting someone to get getting trapped with their theory of patriotism. I mean, we talk about MAGA, right? Bad word, but guess who used it first? Clinton.
I don't know. The Clintons.
Clintons.
Oh, yeah. Well, don't even get into them. We know who they are.
Yeah, it's the big S word. Anybody around them seems to just
kind of,
even if they already been gone for 12 hours.
They do a nice David Copperfield impersonation. I understand what you're saying. Don't they do?
Yeah, that's
but they're good. They're good people. But they're good people. So how do you feel that that I don't know if you're a religious person or not, or how do you not become, what the word they use nowadays is black-pilled? How do you keep doing what you're doing? Because you doing what you're doing means there's still a fight to be had. Is that what you're doing?
This is about the kids. This is about a future for saving humanity, which they're trying to destroy. Look, when they removed the seeds from the watermelon, they were coming to get your children's seeds too. They are on a mission. The Georgia Guidestones represented part of what that was on how to get back through sticks and stones into a new rebirth. As a world entity of humanity, we've been through catastrophic events where we had to start over, civilizations new coming in, building over another. How does that all start up? I don't know. You ask me if I'm religious? Well, if something happened due to rain for 40 days and 40 nights, the way we were taught about it, then I would say there's no explainable reason why humanity's here right now.
Well, I'm a big fan of Randall Carlson, and I've watched a lot of his works. Not his works, but his what he's been looking into with the comet strikes hitting the North American ice sheet and wiping out 75% of all large land animals and stuff like that. But if you notice, Michael, I'm sure you notice as well, but in it could be how would you say, unconnected tribes in the Amazon rainforest. They all have a catastrophic flood event within their lore, within their within their, what's the word I'm looking for? That word.
Existence of time.
Thank you. And it's just very interesting that it happens. So you're saying that there is some type of prime mover, but in the end, so we will be okay, or a lot of us are not going to be okay.
Wow, that's really putting a lot on my lap.
I'm sure.
No. It's look. Some people say that's a really good question. I'm not going to look at it that way. That's a really hard question to address. And I think it is, because I want to say, for all that's good, that we do have opportunity of a chance. But fighting a government that controls weaponry that we don't even know they have, just because we have guns that fire small bullets, is not going to be victorious against anybody. And we don't know how much we should worry about these things. Because when people were saying to me on my shows and on American in Crisis, saying, hey, we should do this, we should do that. And I was like, you want to go home to your wife tonight? Don't do that. Not because we have that much technology that's never shared out. And we know that we've made magnificent jumps in the last 150 years. And I'm going a little deeper into that analogy because I have stories of UFO crashes and stuff that occurred in Germany back in the mid 1850s. We also know of the Vimanas and things in ancient times of ships. I say we are holding on to technologies very close. And that's why, we've seen things happen, like where the German scientists happened to come here to develop certain factors and work with certain secrets, Tesla secrets and more. So, my biggest worry is we can't do it like this. So we got to try to use the laws. We got to try to stay in the format of what will work for us. But all the while we're doing it, they're creating new adversaries of weapons against us that are taking us down, destroying America, opening the borders. You can't do nothing about it. And if you do something about it, we'll send storms over and we'll freeze you out. Your power grid will go down. The houses will flood. They'll be destroyed. They won't be able to sell them. And every narrative grows like that. We've never seen so many high elevated similarities occur, because I'm trying to use proper word here. That's been, floodings and earthquakes and, all these other things. So I don't know. All I can say is it's up to us to do the best we can and try to look for the answers through law, because I don't think us utilizing strength without somebody we can trust unequivocally 100%, and he calls for us to be at his back, because he sits in a place in time where the control of the units as the commander-in-chief will work in our favor. So I think we need to bless ourselves and pray for ourselves to get to that other end of the point in time, because you have a beginning and you have a conclusion. You're going to walk through shit the whole way to get to the conclusion. And let's hope to God that what we're doing, who we are supporting, is really what's going to happen to make the change. And I don't see the change to come in the immensity that people think the world's going to change. I think if this all takes place, that's probably going to be the biblical time of the war.
Wow, that was a very sufficient answer to my off the top of my head question, Michael. I don't even know what to say. I guess we can get to like what happened to Acapulco, because we know every year there's a certain event that happens in Acapulco, and you've seen what happened to that place, and it only hit that place.
Yeah.
People, when you say these things, Maui.
What about East Palestine?
What about Blue?
They started on the waters, but don't forget it started on the railroad. So it's land, air, water, sea. Chemtrail spring. I talked to Dag Wigington. I know all about this. We've been in codes. The things above us, the things beside us, and they're trying. Let's face it. And you can cut that out if you want. I apologize.
I'll just say trying and then cut that part. Those specific words.
Don't
apologize. Don't apologize. I definitely need to find another format so that you and I can speak open. I don't know what that would be, but where other people can find it, that would be incredible. There's so many things. So you are, like I said, I would pick your brain and realize that you have a wealth. Okay, the question I do want to ask,
You don't know
these,
nothing yet. I'm
I
telling
don't
you, I
know,
could
Jack.
sit here and vent to you for like 5 hours and probably still never touch the most important stuff, because there's things bigger than that that exist. Did you? I'll give you a quick example. Did you know you can get up in New Jersey? You can take an underground highway. It'll bring you out in California. You'll never see the light of day.
Never
Well,
heard of
there's
it.
more than one of them too.
So you're saying there's a whole underground civilization?
Below level 7, and the product of below level 7 is also in some of the other categories with that what you deal with it. When you talk to cryptids and recreations and DNA, and them going
Okay.
back to ancient times trying to recreate certain things. We know that they made the sheep. We know about Dolly. That happened. We know they're doing
Yes.
frogs. They're doing rabbits. They just did a woolly mammoth. They can do anything they want as long as they have the information. So yeah, things like that. I mean, what we do know, that's one of the oldest thing lingering in the United States, is something called Littlefoot. Some people know of Bigfoot, of course, but Littlefoot, and they did an analogy on bone and what they could teeth and all the extractions of what they needed for DNA and time, and it went back 3.7 million years, and he's a lot like us and bipedal.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So
I
I'm
get
just
what you're.
saying, because I know you do that, and you're going to have some certain guests coming on talking about different things. But we're looking at a whole thing of quantum. We're looking at a whole thing of sciences and higher consciousness. And I don't know if it's just the fact that higher consciousness is the fact that we're awake, because
We're with.
people have been talking about going to higher consciousness for 35 years. I've seen it being
Okay.
voiced by other people, but I never seen anything outside my doors that was relevant to something being so definitively different, except for the fact that I could walk out the same way I did yesterday today. So I think it's a mindset. I think it's all in how we live, and I will say this: we're never going to come back to the level of where we are, because people look at the Constitution on the same levels as every one of us do. That we all have a right, and if our beliefs are different than yours, that doesn't take our rights away. It's just we
Right.
want our rights, the same as you did. And
Right.
that's how they're using that double-edged sword against us.
Right, because you remember right after, because I was saying that, I was using that lingo. Okay, my body, my choice. No, you're this and you're that. And
Yeah.
then that whole thing came up with abortion in the states, and they started, getting on their boxes and soap boxes and started yelling, my body, my choice. I'm like, you weren't on my side, and now I'm not on your side because I can't. It's what's good for the goose is for the gander. Think the question I really want to ask you is that, do you think that this is just a power grab and a Depop situation, and for what purpose? Or is it some type of like darkness, some type of entity,
Mm,
something I would just
yeah.
say that we can't perceive within the three-dimensional space that we find ourselves in? What do you think
What
about
what
that?
makes it a three-dimensional space?
What makes it that?
Yeah.
I
What
don't know.
analogy do we really have that gives us factual information that anything's 3D?
I don't know. I guess if I'm trying to build a box or something, if I'm trying to make something on the wall, there's always width, depth, and length. But I don't know. What are you getting at, Mike?
I'm not sure. I'm asking you because I don't know if we really know the true definition of where we are and
Okay.
what that actually means, and how four affects it. And if we're in the middle of something that's going to go to something different, and this eclipse is going to help us get there, or Nibru coming back is going to destroy us. I don't know. It's craziness. I think I forgot a little bit about what you were asking. I
No, I
apologize
was
for that.
asking. No, no worries, no worries. In the question, I sparked something, and you were like, "Oh, so no big deal." My question was, Do you think this is human? That's the question
Oh
I'm trying
yeah,
to say.
yeah, right. Okay, yeah. It's hard to put focus there because the enormity of what we've seen, and it's almost like they're getting help from somewhere else. Because I don't think people themselves, these people, us as humans, have the brilliance to counteract every counteract that's ever been counteracted that they continue to be able to do, knowing our steps before we get there, with the exception of the fact that there's something that I call Alice, which is a supercomputer that they are using to analyze us and construct us and take our jobs from us and control us in Facebook, where humanity's all been removed and the computers outthinking us all the way. And the possibility of that does exist if they put in the pre-programming to take these steps. And I think that's why at times where we hear self-mutation, that was all a lie. It was warnings being said to us by certain guys with a last name with the capital F that nobody can stand. And my body, my choice, but we didn't have any when it came to that.
Oh, okay. I know what you're talking about. Okay.
Yeah, so that's why I was giving that hint. But yeah, because that's a bad word. They don't want you to bring that word up. But so yeah, I believe that there is something more significant, and I think perhaps they could have created this technology, and I think at times they did create technology that got out of hands, and they had their hands full because of what they did. And Linda Moulton Howe as well made mention of some of those theories of subject matter that took place with robotics and different technologies, and they can't counteract. They're not human. They don't understand. I can tell you because you say, I did this, and this happened to me. A buddy of mine puts up a post, and he's in a car. He's not in a car, but there's two guys in the car, and he has an LOL something. Boy, I would love to do this to a couple of my friends. And I said, I would kick your butt if you ever did that to me. You know, I got put in community standard jail for saying I would kick your butt for 7 days. They put me, and all I was doing was fighting. So I wrote back and I objected to the narrative. I says, let a human understand my thought and then judge me. But I stayed in jail. I stayed in jail for 7 days. So
I had the same thing happen to me about crocodiles coming, because I'm where crocodiles live, and they had a flooding, and they were like, "Be careful with crocodiles." Like, we had to get to go out there and kick their butt. Basically, that's what I said along those lines, and they were like, "That goes against our." I'm talking about a crocodile coming into communities here in Mexico and possibly hurting people, and so you know that it's not a human doing it; it's some type of letters.
Yes. It's algorithms, it's terminologies, it's sound frequencies, it's picking up on everything we do, and it's becoming more powerful every day. And I'm seeing a lot of people being taken off for it right now. I'm not even allowed on right now. I'm under different AKAs doing what I'm doing to do shows and so forth. So less people will see me. So what? When they can't see me, but I have other ways around that too. You know, I've been planning against it for a long time. So if I was to even want to hit live tonight, I have a way to hit live and get this where I want it to go. And I know they know I'm doing it, but they just haven't. I think the computer, Miss Alice, is trying to figure out how to get me for it.
Wow.
But again, when you look at all the narrative, this goes back into even ancient times. I mean, of so many different things. So was it always here? Was it technology that they found? That, you know, it's all about nano this and nanoparticle that and spray this and do that. It's in foods, it's in plants, it's in everything they're investing in humanity. So, you know, I mean, that's the part of the problem that I have a sequence. I can't sequence with a reality of how to answer it right, because they may have a great cover up of sophistication of programming in place. At the same time, it could be something because the information was so great on a plan that they were going to justify it to become part of a sophistication. That may be where Lockstep came in when the Rothschilds, I think it was the Rothschilds that released how they would conclude these events to happen that we're living in right now as well. So they were putting this out there.
It was all pre-planned. If you look back at certain books, there's things that have been said back in the early 1900s that everything they said is now taking place. I knew that this year was going to be a crazy year. This is the calm before the storm, for real. And batten down the hatches, folks. Batten them down, because it's going to get wild. It's going to be wild. And your whole perception of reality is going to change. And you're going to really see what it is that they've been doing. And here's the thing I've been noticing too, Michael. There's the term people are waking up. I think more people are doing that, but at the same time, I think more people are not waking up. You see more people on their phones. You see more people just not in it. I think that's all planned too. What do you? I don't know. I don't even know how to. I don't even know how to like suggest your question. Like this is all been we have been programmed to be the way we are now,
Oh yeah.
and to perceive it in the way that you and I and many other people, of course, are seeing it is just too much for the average Joe.
Cognitive dissonance.
That's a good word. There it is. Good terminology.
I mean, where something looks too big to be possibly true. And even though the reality is, it's factual. And that's even when you go back into the Adam and Eve story, the apple. I could ask somebody or even you, what did you get out of it? But I'll answer it the way I think it should be answered. It wasn't that it was a forbidden fruit and that a creator would never want us, if we were to be made in somebody's image, to be all of light and good. It was about taking that bite, that step forward was all about knowledge and
Yes.
the worry of what we would now be doing against each other with it.
It was like it was like instant awareness of consciousness or something of that nature.
Two brothers, Inky and Inlu, trying to fight it out. One saying we got to stop it, we can't have it. The other one saying no, I'll protect it. You get into the Anunnaki format, but I think that there's things involved there that way and that are beneficial to think on and theorize around, because it really wasn't about the apple or the fruit. Because if that was the case, we would never have known what apples were. But the other function of the reality is we're seeing the disastrous finger that sits over every red button waiting to, push a disaster in our face again every morning when we wake up. And I think that was some of the scenario that people should try to analyze a little bit better in their daily thought. And it might give them a little bit more of an awareness to why guys like you and I do a show like this.
Yeah, I'm going to try to get you off of here. So we planned an hour, and thank you so much for graciously coming on and talking to me. We are definitely just scratching the surface. Maybe you can give me some ideas of where we could go to actually talk, and you can actually help me get into this a little bit more. Maybe I have to create my own website and make a paywall and all these kind of things. But I want to try to get the people out of here on a positive
library. This is going to sit somewhere in a library until 200 years from now. Young kids are going to be sitting somewhere and they're going to say, go through this old ancient junk. And they're going to come across a story like this and say, so this is how it all happened.
How do we get the people? How do we, because people hearing this, I'm sure they're like kind of down and out because, it can have that effect on you. How can we lead the people on a positive note? What can we do to make them see a projection of a brighter future? What do you think is possible? How do we do that? Like you and I right now.
First off, I want to say I think people are looking for what we're talking about. They want straight shooters. And there's not enough of that because the fear factor worked and because of J number, you know what. When they did what they did and they imprisoned innocent people, and we had bureaus of 3 and 4 letter law enforcement agencies there rooting it on, dressed in Trump apparel and all these different scenarios, was the fear that they needed to put into the American people to keep us shut up and in place. And that's exactly what they did to us. And that's why people are looking for this deeper dive element. I would say don't have fear of it. But at the same time, if it goes to a shelf, I get it. I understand that sometimes things just have to work that way. But if you reflect into my videos, it's all in them. Somewhere it's all through them because I place it on a daily basis the best I can so somebody sees it. As to how I can focus to say to everybody, stay strong, love your children, love your family, make every day count.
Love your neighbors.
Stay prepared the best you can, but also be prepared to protect. Because we're not in control any longer. These people really are. There's no great white hope. There is no... The problem that people got wrapped around was 717 dash, you know what letter I'm referring to, the big circle with the line in it. That was all a psyops of information by them to keep us compliant. thinking all the time our military's coming back. They're gonna take it back. Trump's gonna be back in the office. We're gonna get our country back. There's the Nuremberg trials no, nothing's gonna start, nothing's gonna stop. It's all gonna come to an end. And if you think they're gonna let them get voted in and just hand themselves over and say, all right, you won. I know you're going to arrest me. Do it. Yeah, you got another thing coming. It's not going to be that easy. It's not going to be that gravy train. And that's why I think this information tonight's more important to put it out there, take the hits, because you're making a difference for humanity.
Michael, that was beautifully put. Thank you. Thank you for reaching out to me after I reached out to you, giving me a phone call just kind of behind the scenes and kind of trying to talk to me and see who I am and what I'm about. And thank you so much for coming on, dude. We're going to definitely do a live next time. We had a little bit of a miscommunication. I'm going to try to get this out before the 8th. I'm going to see if I can get that out at least a day or two in advance to give people a little bit of like a heads up and something. And dude, from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much, man. I really mean it.
Not a problem. And if you want to use my Rumble channel or something like that, if it helps you to do something or to do a program, whatever, hit me up. I'll give you the information on how to get into the platform.
All right, man. Thank you once again. Stick around to the end. Stick around after this thing because I got to make sure all the recordings work. Make sure all the recordings work. And yeah, man. Thanks for coming on.
All right, brother. Peace out.
Peace. So that was wild. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Micheal Anthony dropped a lot of bombshells, but you have to say things in a certain way. He is saying and speaking the truth in many aspects. But I want you guys to know, from my point of view, if you do little things with great love, there's a lot of things that you can accomplish in this world. And just remember what he was saying at the end: love your family, love your children, love your parents, and I also would add to that, love your neighbors, because in these big cities and conglomerates and cities that we're in, we don't even know who our next door neighbor is anymore, and that's also intentional. So go out there, go bring a fruit basket, go offer to cut an older person's lawn, do something positive, do something that would not be what these other people want. And thank you all very much for enjoying us. And remember, we are the eye, and we are aware. Thank you. You have been listening to the Eye of Jupiter podcast. If you have any strange occurrences, stories, or witnessed anything out of the ordinary, don't be afraid to send me an email at theeyeofjupiterpodcast@gmail.com, and maybe you will be on the show. And please remember, we are the eye, and we are aware.